Hello and welcome back to Wisdom Wednesday. Today we're going to continue our series with town building. We have some new additions, some cool things that some of you patrons have added to the town. So let's dig right in. Okay, so here's where we're at. Since our last thing, we have had some stuff laid out before us. So if you're not already there, go ahead and open up the Google Doc and follow along with me. Because as of this week's Wisdom Wednesday, we've got a lot of contributions. So in terms of geography, our town, Lagos, the people who are from that area, the Lagoshi, the river Lagnor that runs through the town and ultimately ends up south of the town in the Lagnor Lake, Lake Lagnor. To the northeast and east is a massive ancient forest known as Minaria. The wood elves who live there are the Minaria elves. The forest gnomes who live there in harmony with the wood elves are called the Dill. Those are both contributions from our good friend DoD Spec Ops. To the west are the Rokeric Hills, the dominion of the Green Ridge Hill Dwarf clan and Cragspear Mountain Dwarf clan, who have developed mining operations. So we came up with that on the last episode, Green Ridge, Hill Dwarf clan, and the Cragspear Mountain Dwarf clan. We were talking about climate. There's a warm Mediterranean climate, plenty of rain and sun for growing crops. DoD added in some specifics, grain and a very rare fruit. I think the very rare fruit idea is cool because it kind of gives it something special. We don't have a name for that yet, but I like the idea. All right, government. Lagos is ruled by a mysterious, secretive man named Mooxhu, a feared tyrant who unilaterally decided to make an alliance with the dwarf clans and also begin unauthorized logging and timber mill operations on the perimeter of the ancient forest, creating animosity between the forest folk and the Lagos citizenry. Nobody has ever actually met Mooxhu in person. He always uses intermediaries to conduct his business. One of the things that we came up with on the last episode was more definition of Mooxhu. So lower down on the dock are the important NPCs for the area, and we fleshed out Mooxhu quite a bit. Okay, trade. We talked about trade between Lagos and the neighboring villages and towns to the south is strong, largely because Lagos is a hub for many resources. We talked about culture. So this ties in some of the racial tensions within the culture. The Minaria elves, the Dill forest gnomes. And then we're talking about religion. So part of what we talked about was, so that this could kind of be system neutral, you can define the religion based on the setting. So if you decide to use the town of Lagos in the Forgotten Realms, you could use Faerun Pantheon gods. In this case, I'm just using New Wolf Otmai, so elemental gods. So yeah, so Vusaik, Vem, Ayuk, Deepa. So most of the longtime residents of Lagos pay homage to the old gods, thanking the earth god and water goddess for all their blessings. Many of the newer residents, as well as traders and travelers, have brought other beliefs to Lagos. There's no official religion. We talked already about racial tension, so we kind of established that pretty well between the dwarves and the humans and the elves and the forest gnomes, and basically the Lagoshi versus the Minaria and the dwarves versus the Minaria, that kind of stuff. Town traits. We fleshed out that pretty well. Then we started getting into inns and taverns. So we had some contributions from you guys. So let's go over that. The Gleaming Mountain Inn is the high-end inn owned by Mooxhu. We're going to try to expand on that a little bit. The Roaring Horde, Raucous Dive. The building was once a fishery, was turned into an inn, tavern, and brothel. I just noticed a grammatical error there, which I am hereby fixing. The Slaughtered Pony is a modest inn with good food and decent accommodations. The wine cellar is also the gathering place for, insert name here, a secret society in Lagos. The Gilded Spirit, that's the place that is the tavern that hosts gambling and games adjacent to the Gladiator Pit. And then TopoMusicale added the Weary Minstrel. So we talked about having an inn for like bards and artists and stuff. So this is his addition, which I love. The inn for artists, writers, performers, and bards. This place has a full stage where talent is invited to perform, maybe a weekly or by invitation program. It also has a small library and writing room in the back, accessible by invitation only. I also thought, as we expand on the Weary Minstrel, it might be kind of cool to have some of the employees as low-level casters who use cool effect cantrips to kind of enhance performances, right? So imagine you're at a medieval, theatrical event. They're doing some play, and there are people there using minor illusion and prestidigitation and thaumaturgy to add like cool little effects, right? To enhance like sound effects and lights and different things to kind of enhance the performance. I think that would be cool in a world with even limited magic to have that kind of a cool draw. Okay, then we got into religious locations. So this is new for this week. So we had some great contributions from you guys. TopoMusicale came up with an awesome idea that I loved, that there should be, like for the main temple in town, like the actual big temple, that I'll just read the description he included. So this is the only true temple in the town, built out of stone with a 3-story beacon tower at its apex. The beacon tower has an enormous brazier for oil and mirrors in each corner support wall that reflect light outward, like a lighthouse. So I thought of this as being just the temple of the elemental gods, which makes it really easy to integrate into New Wolf Oatmai because you have the 4 elemental gods. But if you're in Faerun, you could kind of choose what major pantheon deities you want to include. And then there would be smaller shrines to lesser deities. So smaller shrines to lesser deities may also exist here depending on the setting. Some ideas include a shrine to the deity of travelers and entertainers, a shrine to the deity of laborers, and a shrine to the deity of earthly pleasures and excess. So that was a really cool addition from TopoMusicale. I love that. And it also gives a lot of flexibility for possible adventure hooks, right? So, I mean, an easy one to pick out would be like the shrine to the deity of earthly pleasures and excess. Maybe this is kind of a weird cult that, relishes in imbibing alcohol or in, eating hallucinogenic mushrooms or just in sexual like orgies, whatever the case may be, however you want to use it. But it could lead to a cool plot hook where like maybe the characters go there to have some fun, but then they find out there's something else going on behind the scenes. Maybe something, involving a cult that's trying to take over power, right? Or maybe it's a thieves guild that's supplying like drugs and like hashish or whatever to this shrine, and they're kind of muscling in on another established guild, what have you. Lots of flexibility there. Okay, we talked about, in the last episode, we kind of fleshed out more of the government buildings, the Lord's Manor, the militia training camp and barracks, and the jail. I like this idea from DoD. So added on to the jail, okay? Unknown to locals and current jailmaster employees, there is an underground tunnel to the Gleaming Mountain Inn used by Mooxhu for personal interests. I love that. Awesome addition, right? Remember that we've decided Mooxhu is going to be this changeling who assumes all these different identities. Maybe Mooxhu has ways of getting in and out of multiple buildings, not just the jail. But this could be a cool hook, right? If the players somehow discover that there's this secret cellar that leads to these underground tunnels, that might unravel more of the mysteries of how Mooxhu's getting from one place to the other without being seen in public very often. Okay, then we talk about the organizational buildings. DoD added some stuff about the Miners Guild Hall with their leader, Harn Burvar. The Carpenters Guild. I fleshed that one out a little bit on the last episode. The Carpenters Guild is ruled by the Selva family, the oldest noble family and the primary owners of the lumber mill. The patriarch of this family is Claes Selva. The public guild hall is something that we kind of brainstormed, and DoD and a couple of you other guys came up with some good ideas. Sorry, I'm reading a weird grammatical thing. But anyway, the public guild hall is kind of a place where any craftsman, even if they're not in a guild, could gather. It's kind of like a members only, like you have to be a craftsman, you know. Think kind of like a Mason's, you know, a Masonic temple. You know, you have to be card-carrying craftsman of some kind to enter, almost like a private club. All right, then we get into shops, services, and entertainment. This has been a huge expansion. Thanks again to a lot of really cool ideas. DoD Spec Ops has added some, TopoMusicale has added some, and it's really cool to see this stuff come together. So I'm going to start with the musical instrument shop. So Topo sent me this awesome piece, and I'm just going to read it verbatim. If you have the Google Doc open, you can read along. But the musical instrument shop, called The Golden Lyre, is owned by master craftsman and half-elf Christina Vlingen. Christina's father is a Minaria elf, and she has connections there, which she uses to ensure a supply of the quality woods that she requires for her business. She has an apprentice, Demeter Selva, and Demeter Selva is the youngest son of Klaz Selva, the head of the Carpenters Guild. The shop specializes in stringed instruments, notably lutes and harps and lyres, though they do produce other wooden instruments, such as hand drums and wooden flutes. Since the town attracts many musicians, the shop stocks a small selection of other instrument types for which Christina has traded and is reselling. So reeded instruments, horns with metal or ceramic mouthpieces, and bells, etc. So kind of a cool idea for a shop. Also, the character of Christina Vlingen creates opportunities to expand on an NPC, and in fact, Topo has also fleshed out Christina. So when we get down to the NPCs section, we'll talk more about that. But again, one small seed could create a variety of adventures. Maybe the party meets up with Christina and finds out that her most recent shipment from her uncle from Minaria has gone missing. Who took it? Why did they take this wood? Was it targeted or just random banditry? And then that could lead to other storylines. So that was a great addition. Then we have a boat builders and repair. So again, this one came from TopoMusicale. There's a boat building business called Zook Brothers Boats, run by the humans Jafia and Azrael Zook. They build boats the old-fashioned way with no nails, only wooden joinery. Jafia specializes in small boat building, while Azrael specializes in building the rafts and barges used for trade. Half of their business consists of maintenance and repair, and they have a wharf along the riverfront adjacent to their boatyard and near the northern edge of the town. When business is slow, they can often be found fishing from their wharf or somewhere else outside of town. And again, simple shop, right? This is just a place in town. The characters might never run across it, but a cool thing is that they could run across these guys fishing. Or maybe they get hired to do a job and their boat gets damaged and they're referenced to go find the Zook brothers to repair it. And in meeting the Zook brothers, maybe the Zook brothers have run out of a certain kind of supply. So there's like low-level adventure potential, there's mid-level adventure potential. Maybe they find out that there's some disturbance in the lake to the south, and they have to take a boat there that's like lake-worthy, right? Because this is like a large lake. And maybe they hire the Zook brothers, right? And in the course of that, they find out these old like folklore things about this lake creature that existed and used to smash boats. And, you know, maybe they find out that there's some truth in that folklore. Okay, then we have another one. This is an apothecary. And this is a contribution from TopoMusicale. And I really like this one too because, again, it fleshes out a cool potential NPC that your party can interact with. Small Packages is an apothecary shop owned by the halfling herbalist Jacqueline Smallborough. Her business provides the typical herbal concoctions the locals want, but is also a clearinghouse for bulk herbs sold to herbalists in other towns and cities. She hires locals, trains them to identify a specific herb she needs, then sends them out to go gather them on commission. Boom. Low-level adventure, right? Simple thing turns out to be not so simple. Maybe where she sends them, there's goblins or trolls. I don't know, depending on what level you want to have this at. But a lot of opportunity there, right? Maybe it's more exploration. Maybe there's kind of these foreign areas to the north that nobody ever really travels through, and she has to send people because this one herb only grows on the hillsides to the in the hills and mountains to the north. So there's another opportunity there. Rumor has it that she also trades in arcane spell components, though her shop seems devoid of those types of items. So maybe she has a side business in the back for spellcasters looking for rare components. So lots of opportunities to expand that to low level, mid level, and high level. Okay, then we've got a cool one here. This is in the category of warehouses. So when you have a river town, there's a lot of shipping and trade. There's bound to be warehouses, not just like one or two, right? And they might be owned by different people. So what I like is that DoD submitted this warehouse idea and some NPC and plot hook points. So let's explore that. Carafa. That's right. DoD came up with an NPC in honor of Carafa. Carafa, a businessman from the capital city, arrived with his family 5 years prior. Semi-wealthy human, previously inherited coin from his mother's estate, and seeking new settlements, he heard of Lagos and set forth. Brought his family after he established his new manor and businesses, and his connection to Mooxhu may or may not be associated early on. So I like what DoD did there because he left it kind of open-ended. You as the DM can decide. Is Carafa going to be an ally of Mooxhu openly? Is he going to be maybe an enemy of Mooxhu, or maybe a frenemy, or maybe he's kind of neutral at first, but then you find out that he's got a beef with Mooxhu, or he's neutral and you find out he's secretly one of Mooxhu's allies. Or maybe he reluctantly follows Mooxhu because Mooxhu is blackmailing him. Boom. See all those options? One NPC, one location. Now, how could that hook into the warehouse? So many options. Maybe some shipments have gone missing. Nobody knows where they are. The characters stumble across this warehouse. They find out that these stolen goods are being amassed in Carafa's warehouse. They confront him about it, and that's when he reveals that he has to do this because he's being blackmailed by Mooxhu. The possibilities are limitless. You can do what you want with it. All right, we have another submission, again from DoD, and this is for the granary and mill. Miss Tana Tudor, Mother Tris Tudor, family run for 4 generations. Father left to join the war, providers of fine breads for the Gleaming Mountain Inn. They also provide bread for other establishments and have a cart in the square for the locals. So not only are they a granary, they're storing the grain, and a mill, but they also have a bakery. So it's a full-scale business line. What can you do with that? Any number of things. Okay, then we have another warehouse. This one is from TopoMusicale. There's a warehouse near one of the roads coming into town simply known as Flax's Run. Flax's. Run by Herrig Flax, but actually owned by Suka the Inscrutable, head of the local Thieves Guild, which has a secret basement lair. Herrig is smitten with Suka, and she uses this to control him, but she doesn't have any feelings for him. Suka is concerned about the basement being discovered as part of the town's sewer excavations. Suka was the primary behind-the-scenes investor when the Roaring Horde Tavern was built, and as such, receives 25% of the profits. So that ties in to so many different plot lines that we've been talking about. It's really cool. And again, these are all NPCs that we can flesh out more, or we can leave it up to you to flesh them out. All right, DoD came up with a name for the gladiator pit called the Iron Maiden. Now, while I love Iron Maiden, I'm concerned that using that name directly could lead to some concerns about copyright. So, DoD, with all due respect, I'm going to take that one out. I like it, but I want to stick with something a little more original and less possibly copyrighted. So we're gonna leave the name off the pit. However, we do have a bunch of other cool shop names. All right, so one such place would be for furnishings. DoD came up with the Elm Ash and Oak Leaf Fine Furniture. That sounds like a proper furniture place. Also, Zilman, the human weaponsmith. Hasim, the mountain elf armorer. Leodes Beimler, Leodes Beimler, the Boyer and Fletcher. Joran Shirk, the rock gnome mason. So we got a lot of other additional contributions, okay? What I really want to focus on for this episode is looking at the NPCs and maybe fleshing them out just a little bit more. So we did a lot with Mooxhu, and we did Klaz Salva, and I've added in to the doc Christina Valingen, TopoMusicale's addition to the NPCs. So I added in her description, and Topo has added in that she should have attributes of a high wisdom and charisma, proficiencies with woodworking, musical instruments, multiple musical instruments, persuasion, and insight. Then we have Jacqueline Smallborough. She's the halfling herbalist. And we kind of read about her. She would also have a high wisdom and intelligence. She would have nature, medicine, perception, investigation, and arcana. So a lot of proficiencies that are knowledge-based there. Then we have Harn Burvar, a middle-aged dwarf from the Cragspear mountain range. As leader of the Miners Guild, he's been trying to maintain dwarven rights in Lagos. Being a representative for the guild makes him a target for outside influences and corruption attempts. Harn's family background and past history is unknown at this time. He came to his role by majority vote with outside influences from Mooxhu's crew. He travels to Cragspear Mountains periodically to hire new laborers and to see the current status of the dwarf-elf relations, which he reports back to Mooxhu. Rumors have it that he may have fought against the Minari elves at some point. So that's another great addition to flesh out Harn Burvar from DoD. So that's where we were working and adding in TopoMusicale's other NPC, Suka the Inscrutable. So Topo came up with this, and Suka is a Cloud Giant Soul Sorcerer Rogue. I like that combination. I'm not big on going too crazy with the racial options in my setting, but I think it could work. So Suka discovered her innate magical powers at 13 years old. Those, in combination with her strange appearance, unusual height, and a slightly blue tint to her pale skin, were enough to cause her to be forced by her father to flee persecution in the small village in which she was raised. She ended up living alone as a hermit in the woods far from any village and vowed never to trust another person. It was there she slowly developed her sorceress powers. When she was 19, she decided to head to the nearest city, and there she fell in with the criminal element, who found her talents very useful. After training as a burglar, she had a falling out with a powerful boss who wanted her, and she fled, ultimately finding opportunity in the rapidly growing community of Lagos. She has earned the moniker the Inscrutable because she never shows emotion. We have high attributes in dexterity and charisma, proficiencies in deception, insight, intimidation, medicine, religion, stealth, thieves' tools, and herbalism. And then Topo has even fleshed out her sorcery, her metamagic, subtle spell and extended spell, and then her cantrips, first level spells, and second level spells, including a full character sheet, which is, again, awesome. So if you're looking for that stuff, I will add that to the folder once I have a chance to kind of combine everything. And what I may even do is start up a second Google Doc that focuses just on the NPCs. That way we're not scrolling down for like 50 pages. It might just make it easier organizationally to have a separate doc. Okay, so that gets us caught up for all the contributions. What do we want to focus on today? So we're building this environment. We're building this region. We're building this town. But we've talked about some story hooks, but we haven't really fleshed out any adventures, okay? So what I want to do is shift gears over to the Dungeon Master's Guide. And I want to start just making outlines for adventures, okay? And in so doing, I think what I'm going to do is we're going to go into the Google Drive, and into the building a town. And I'm going to make another document. And that another document is going to become the adventures document. So anything that we want to brainstorm for adventures, we're going to put into this adventures document. Okay? And that will allow us to expand, and everybody can contribute from the smallest adventure thread into just brainstorming like a list into fully fleshed out adventures that have like plot hooks and suggested encounters and exploratory stuff and social interactions. And this is going to be pretty epic, I think. But prior to doing that, I'm going to just modify this document. So I like consistency, and one tip as a DM is it's easier to stay organized if you're kind of consistent with how you do things. So I'm going to kind of maintain the same structure as I have with some of the other stuff in my adventures, in my campaign notes. Okay, so sticking with that organization, we can think about how to craft an adventure within this town based on NPCs, based on locations. Any number of those options would work for crafting an adventure. So where do you start when you're a DM? Where do you start? If you're new to DMing, one of the easiest ways to come up with an adventure is to think about a story from a book, from a TV show, from a movie. Think about the essence of that story, narrow it down to a core idea, and then modify it and insert it back into your world. Let me think of something that wouldn't be a spoiler. Okay. Let's go with Doctor Strange. Okay, so the idea behind Doctor Strange is he's a medical doctor. He lives life to the fullest and fastest. He has this horrible car accident where he permanently injures his hands and his nerves, so he's not allowed to actually do surgery, the one thing that he was the best at. And his life becomes full of turmoil until he discovers magic, and then he pursues it relentlessly, despite all obstacles, learning magic and rising to become a sorcerer supreme. Couldn't we take that same idea and apply it to the beginning of an adventure? Suppose, for example, that you have a party, mid-level, low-level, doesn't really matter, who encounters a man who seems to be down on his luck, okay? But there's this air of nobility about him. Like, maybe his clothes are like really fancy clothes that are just beat up and like torn and stained, okay? So you could tell at one time this guy might have had money, but now he's been down on his luck, right? Maybe he's very handsome, like he has a high charisma, but he's got like shaggy hair and his facial hair is overgrown and stuff. He's not taking care of himself. And they encounter this man, and when they introduce themselves and he introduces himself back, he unfortunately can't introduce himself because he has no memory of who he is. He's fallen on hard times. He has amnesia. And all he knows, all he could find on him when he awoke, the last thing he remembers was waking up in the middle of the forest wearing the clothes that he was wearing. He had no other belongings, no supplies, no weapons, no food. But under his shirt, he had this necklace on. And he pulls out the necklace and he shows him, and it's this symbol. But the symbol's unlike anything that anyone has seen before. That's the seed for a mystery. Now, if they don't care and they just move on, as a DM, you have to be ready for the next adventure. But that little hook, that little mystery might be something to entice them. Maybe they want to help this guy find out who he is. Maybe he outright asks them if they could help him find out who he is. And they go and they investigate, they research, and every time they start asking anyone about this symbol, people like clam up. Nobody talks about it. And it's this weird like conspiracy almost, where like nobody will fess up. And maybe after a lot of investigation and talking to people, they finally find out from someone who's deathly afraid that this symbol belonged to the former lord of Lagos. And in fact, they discover that this man is the former lord of Lagos. And they find out his name. And they find out that this man was actually leading Lagos, and he went to a meeting that he was supposed to have with the Minaria elves. and he was actually ambushed and assassinated, thought to be dead. Who did it? Mooxhu? Did Mooxhu do a coup on this guy? Or did the Manaria elves kill this guy? Why would they do that? Or was it someone else entirely? Maybe it was somebody who didn't want this lord to make peace with the Manaria elves. Maybe it was the dwarves. See how many options there are? And all of this started just from the concept of somebody who once reigned and then had a fall from grace, and now the party has to decide, are they going to help the former lord restore his memory and try to seek an alliance with the Manaria elves to overthrow Mooxhu? Can they even do that? Does Mooxhu know this guy is still alive? All of these are unknowns. So that's just something we can work on. And I think the best time to work on it is while the idea is fresh in our minds. So again, I can start this off just in a doc as, a list of ideas for possible adventures. And that's, in fact, you know what? That's what I'm going to... Lagos Adventure Ideas. There we go. That's what we're going to call this. Lagos Adventure Ideas. Think with me, if you will. In creating this hook, have we created also a protagonist, somebody who is inherently able to team up with the party? If this is the rightful lord, and Mooxhu has basically not only had him assassinated 15 years ago, but where has he been for the last 15 years? Why is he just now coming back to Lagos? Those are all questions we need to answer. So I'm going to title this first idea. I don't know the guy's name, but the Lord Returns. That's the name for this adventure idea. Summary. The former Lord of Lagos disappeared mysteriously 15 years ago, just prior to Mooxhu's rise to power. Nobody knows exactly what happened. The Lord left town for a meeting in Manaria with the elf lords and never returned. Since his disappearance, Mooxhu has forbidden anyone from discussing the former lord or even acknowledging he ever existed. What actually happened, the former lord, who we have to come up with a name for, the former lord was assassinated and left for dead. Somehow he survived, but had major amnesia. Parentheses, how did he survive? Did someone save him from dying? Did someone nurture him back to health? So 15 years is a long time. Why would that lord not return to Lagos? And why would the person nurturing him not return to Lagos? whoever nurtured him back to health knew who he was and knew that if he returned to Lagos, then Mooxhu would have him killed. So they kept him away from Lagos all these years. However, oh, and then another parentheses. What did the Lord do all these years? What new identity did he make for himself? Why then, after all these years, did the Lord return to Lagos? Adventure hooks and plot points. So, what kind of adventure hooks and plot points does this create? A whole plethora. And I'm going to make a bullet point list. Party meets former lord, tries to discover his true identity. People in town clam up. Conspiracy beginning to take shape, etc. Party wants to help former lord overthrow Mooxhu. Here's another one. What if your party is a bunch of dicks? What if you have like a really selfish, neutral, or even evil party, and they find out who this lord is, and instead of helping him overthrow Mooxhu, they're going to cash in and tell Mooxhu about this lord, and they'll serve Mooxhu's interests? Or what if your party's good, but they don't know Mooxhu's bad, and they get a request from Mooxhu to handle this thing, and Mooxhu lies and deceives them and tells them that this former lord is actually a usurper who's come to disrupt the peace that Mooxhu has worked so hard for in the last 15 years. Lots of ways to spin it. Mooxhu lies about former lord and claims he's a usurper who is here to disrupt the peace and prosperity that Mooxhu has established. Ooh, I love that. Secret alliances revealed? Question mark. Did the dwarves have the former lord assassinated? Because he was making treaties with the Monaria? Did Mooxhu have him assassinated? Who knows? How many people are in on this? Maybe it was a conspiracy. Maybe they all did. Oh, this is rich. Okay, let's take a look at this book. I would like to also, as I'm working through this, help you guys understand my philosophy. So on pages 72 and 73 in the book of DM's Guide, we have some tables that help us determine adventure types, okay? So there are dungeon goals, wilderness goals, other goals, just other goals, adventure villains, adventure allies, adventure patrons, adventure introduction, adventure climax. Let's just roll up a random adventure, shall we? Yes. Fresh, clean sheet of paper in my notebook. So the first thing let's do is, let's let's start about wilderness goals. Okay, here we go. I rolled a 15, which is discover the fate of a missing group of explorers. What? That's perfect. Discover fate of missing explorers. That works really well. We could have explorers exploring Manaria, the hills, any number of options. Let's add in another goal. So on page 74, I rolled a 14. Oh, it's a D12, rip. No, stop rolling. No, stop rolling. There we go. 4, retrieve an object from a caravan. That's always good. Retrieve an object from a caravan. Now, that could be a caravan that went missing. That could be a caravan that is an enemy caravan, and the party has to raid it and get this object back. It could be a party of civilians and friendlies, and somehow Mooxhu has convinced the party that they're doing the right thing under his law. Retrieve an object from a caravan, and maybe it's an object that he needs in order to do some diabolical thing. But remember, Mooxhu is not the only possible bad NPC. It could be someone else, completely neutral of the Mooxhu situation. Okay, identify important NPCs. These are adventure villains, so let's roll. I rolled a 1. Beast or monstrosity with no particular agenda. That's a good one. And that's easy to throw in, right? Like that could be trolls raiding the local road, which has led to this missing explorers thing. That could be any number of things. It could be the creature in the lake that we talked about. Let's add one more. A humanoid conqueror. Let me think about that. I'm going to write it down. Nothing's jumping to mind, but it's not a really hard hook. So what can you do when you just randomly roll? Adventure allies. Let's do that one. That's a D12. 8. Raving lunatic. Ha ha! I love that. Raving lunatic. You know, H.P. Lovecraft stuff, like Call of Cthulhu things, a lot of that has to do with sanity loss, right? You encounter some otherworldly creature or being that is so powerful that it literally blows your mind. This could be great. A raving lunatic doesn't have to be evil. It could be a good person who's been so mentally destroyed by some encounter that they don't make a lot of sense. And it could be really fun to play that NPC so that the party's constantly guessing at what reality is and what was just imagined, but there's threads of reality in there. And maybe you write up silly little rhymes, right? I'm like, this person can only speak in rhymes. And you like pre-generate a bunch of rhymes that are clues. And some of them outwardly seem to be silly, but they are like symbolism in there. That could be deep. That's a great opportunity. And I could tie it into the lake monstrosity. I could tie it into retrieving an object from a caravan. I could tie it into this discovering the fate of the missing explorers. All this could be tied in like 20 different ways. Let's keep going. Patrons. So your adventuring patrons. In other words, maybe the party got hired to do something, or maybe they are just being asked to do something out of their own goodwill. I rolled 11, which is a respected elder. I like that. So that could be one of the guild masters or one of the noble families who's been tasked with this. Maybe one of the noble families' son or daughter was part of this exploring party that has gone missing. And that's the initial hook. See? So many ways to hook that in. All right, now we have the adventure introduction on page 74. Here's where they give you a bunch of options for how to introduce the adventure. So it's a D12. 2. While traveling in the wilderness, the characters notice the entrance to the adventure location. That could work, especially if they're looking for the fate of the missing explorers. Wilderness. Find entrance. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. You got these missing explorers. You could send this party west into the Dwarf Hills, and maybe they fell down this crevice, and that led to an underground cavern that not even the dwarves know about. And living in that cavern is some monstrous creature, right? Whether they're alive or dead, you decide. Maybe some of them are dead, and some of them have been captured. And they're hired by their patron, the respected elder of whatever guild, to find them. And maybe that one noble family member who is part of that expedition is one of the ones that are still alive, that's being kept in the creature's lair for later food consumption. Maybe along the route, they run into this raving lunatic who swears that the creature in the hills is real. No one believes him, blah, 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 right? See how this is all potentially tying together? I like this. Okay, adventure climax. How do we add in this adventure to finish it? Number 7, a portal opens to another plane of existence. No, I'm just shutting that one down right now. Too powerful. Reroll. 1, the adventurers confront the main villain and a group of minions in a bloody battle to the finish. That's easy. Let's do that. Big battle. Comma, rescue survivors. Let me roll a second one. 2, the adventurers chase the villain while dodging obstacles designed to thwart them, leading to a final confrontation, blah, blah, blah. Let me roll another one. 7, portal opens, no. All right, whatever. Here's the point. A conclusion to your story doesn't have to be pre-written. The player's actions are going to determine the conclusion, right? So here's another easy thread, and I'm going to add this to the adventures doc. So we've already made 2 possible adventures. That's fantastic. Maybe 3, because remember how I mentioned like the creature in the water in the lake? That could be another one. We could borrow from this list to make 2 distinct adventures. So I'm going to type up the next adventure, which is going to be, and I'm going to use the same format. So there's like the title of the adventure, and I'm going to call this one the Missing Expedition. The Lost Expedition? No, the Missing Expedition. And I think we're going to have, so the summary is just going to be an expedition into the northern hills searching for new mining opportunities has gone missing. Their camp has been torn apart with very little clues about what happened or where they went. Now you could this is an opportunity as a DM where you can give them some easy hooks, right? Like the people who have survival can just try to track things, and maybe if they roll well, you give them some clues in what direction it's going in. Or maybe you find like, as they're like, well, we pan out, we search the whole area. And whoever makes their search rolls, okay, you find some broken wood from like what looks like a chest that had been broken up. Or you find like parts of bodies, whatever, however deep you want to go in. When they finally track down the tracks, that's horrible grammar, it leads them to a crevasse in the hills that goes hundreds of feet underground. This becomes a cave/cavern crawl with smaller monsters at first, but the clues keep leading to the main chamber where the insert monster here, big monster, lives. The monster has the survivors of the expedition trapped for eating later. The party can rescue them stealthily or fight the big bad monster. I like to leave those options. They're not going to talk their way through this with a monster. It's not that sentient, right? What we rolled was a beast or monstrosity. So this is an animal primitive thing. It has food, which are the survivors. It will not negotiate. So either they have to be stealthy or they have to kill it. I like to leave those options on the table because a creative party might figure out a way to distract the monster and be stealthy, or just be stealthy outright, or some combination, and get the rescued people out. Maybe you add in a time component and you keep track in real time. But if you do that, tell your group up front, say, I'm going to time this out. So for every hour that it takes you to do this adventure, another survivor is going to die. That's kind of cold-blooded, but if you have a very experienced gaming group and you want to up the ante, sometimes adding real timers to stuff keeps them in the zone, right? So that could be kind of cool. All right, so that's the summary. That's kind of the whole thing, actually. I don't know. That's yeah, I like that. Oh, additional info. They meet a raving lunatic in the area who says that there's a monster in the hills. He talks in riddles or rhymes. Not always obvious answers, but has some symbolic clues about things. Okay, that's the kind of NPC that some people might just straight out ignore, but others might really get into. They might kind of try to pry for more information. And if they successfully roleplay ways to interact with the raving lunatic and get him to kind of convey more information, then reward them. Like if they do a really good job, give them an inspiration point. There's so many ways that you could reward your party for strong role playing. Okay, I'm just gonna type up one more thing, and that will be the lake idea. And this is just a bare, I haven't even fleshed this out yet, really. The lurker in the lake. Okay, this is not me being like, Bill is amazing. He comes up with so many creative things. This is like the Loch Ness Monster. Okay, so there's always been rumors about a aquatic creature in Lake Lagos. When the moon is full and the lake is covered in fog, stay out of the water. Recently, some trade ships have gone missing. That's your caravan hooked. And one very important ship has a timely delivery to make upriver in Lagos. The party needs to be on that ship to ensure the ship makes it safely. There you go. Could you have another raving lunatic in there? Yeah, but that might be played out. So that could be more of a boat-based thing, right? So you're on a ship. Now, when I think of that kind of stuff, there's so many options, right? You could think of like Pirates of the Caribbean. In fact, I'm going to write down possible influences for style and or NPCs. Pirates of the Caribbean. Or, how about Apocalypse Now? If you don't know what Apocalypse Now is, you're probably younger than me. Apocalypse Now is basically one of the greatest Vietnam movies ever made. You should go out and watch it. It's based on a book by Joseph Conrad called Heart of Darkness. But the idea is like you're going upriver in this mysterious foreign land. So it's a little bit exploratory, okay? And maybe a few of the encounters are not brutal. Like it's not, you're just not raining monsters down on them. Maybe it's just mysterious at first, right? Where there's mists on the water and they hear sounds and stuff. It's kind of haunting, like a horror film. And then maybe there's like lurking things under the water and you don't really know what that is or who's there or what it is. And then there's some weird, like random thing, like a giant squid, okay, that attacks the boat. But it doesn't destroy the boat, but a few people get like whipped by it and, you know, some people suffer damage, whatever. And then when they get to the mouth of the river, what seems to be calm is even worse. Now the fog has enveloped the whole land. Now you could bring in undead things. Aquatic creatures on a smaller scale. Undead attacks based on levels. So, you know, if they're lower levels, you just have zombies, like drowned people crawling up the ship, you know, and you have 10 zombies crawl up the ship and they have to fight off the zombies, or skeletons. If it's higher level, maybe you have a ghost. Maybe you have a wight or some other, you know, undead that's a little more mid-level, high-level stuff. Ultimately, bigger, badder, end guy monster, right? So something like that. Just a little variety, okay? And with the onset of Ghosts of Saltmarsh, which I haven't read, but I mean, it's not rocket science. You just come up with some kind of cool mysteries. Maybe, by the way, maybe there's a tribe of like water ogres. I'm just gonna write that in there. Ogres who attack and raid near the big bridges. I just made that up. Now there's big bridges along the river. Maybe there's some ogres at night who take advantage of the fog cover and they come down and they attack boats and they attack caravans. So whatever you decide to do with it, it can be a lot of fun for a little adventure that we put into this region. Okay, I'm kind of tapped out, so I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I love this interaction. Please don't hesitate to jump in with ideas. It doesn't have to be a full like adventure or an NPC. You could just throw names at me. You could come up with random ideas and be like, hey, Bill, it'd be cool if you came up with an exploring the abandoned mines adventure for the dwarves who live to the west of Lagos. Whatever it is. If you have ideas, post them on the Patreon wall. Send me a message. Shoot me an email, thebillallen@gmail.com. Or if you want to just type your stuff directly into any of the docs that we have, let me know and I'll add you to the permissions for the doc. And all I ask is that you tag your handle so that I know who contributed what, okay? So that's it for this one. We'll see you next week. We'll start to flesh out some more stuff. Hope you guys are enjoying this. Thank you for your support as always, and we'll see you next time.